Have you ever seen a $90,000 electric SUV slowly disappear under a gray concrete shell in broad daylight? Before we get into this, quick question. Tell us where you're watching from right now. City, state, or country. I'm curious how many of you have HOA horror stories like mine. Because this all started the moment Marcus Bell, the HOA Vice Chair, decided my driveway was his personal loading zone. Marcus wasn't just any board member. He was one of those guys who wore pressed polos with the HOA logo stitched on the chest, walked around with a clipboard, and talked to everyone like they were renters in his neighborhood. Late 40s, shaved head, mirrored sunglasses even at night, and a voice that always sounded like he was issuing a citation. He drove a matte black electric SUV, huge, silent, and obnoxiously wide. And somehow, that thing ended up blocking my driveway. The first time, I assumed it was a mistake. I came home from work and found his SUV parked sideways across the mouth of my driveway, nose practically kissing my garage door. I couldn't pull in, I couldn't pull out. I had to park halfway down the street. I knocked on his door. Marcus opened it, looked past me at my driveway, and smirked. "Oh yeah," he said casually. "I'm unloading equipment. It'll just be a bit." "How long is a bit?" I asked. He checked his watch theatrically. "Depends." That SUV stayed there 4 hours. The second time, it happened at 6 a.m. I was late for work, coffee in hand, hit the garage button, and froze. The same SUV, same position, same smug inevitability. I texted him. No response. I knocked. No answer. So I called the HOA emergency line. Guess who answered? Marcus. "Oh, that?" he said. "Yeah, I'm allowed temporary obstruction for HOA duties." "What duties?" I snapped. "Inspection prep. You should have read the bylaws." He hung up. That's when I realized this wasn't accidental. This was territorial. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus blocked my driveway 7 times. Morning, afternoon, once overnight. Each time he'd have a new excuse. Vendor staging, board materials, temporary access. Meanwhile, my trash pickup got skipped. I missed a dentist appointment. I had to Uber to work twice. I documented everything. Photos, videos, timestamps. I contacted towing companies. Every single one backed out the moment they heard his name. One driver actually told me, "Man, that guy blacklists companies. I'm not touching it." Marcus knew it too. One evening, I caught him standing across the street, arms folded, watching me try to squeeze my car out. He smiled and said, "You know, cooperation makes life easier." That's when I stopped trying to reason with him. Instead, I started researching. See, I work in facilities maintenance, not construction, maintenance. I know materials, adhesives, curing times, what sets fast, what doesn't. And one night, while scrolling through industrial forums, I stumbled onto something beautiful. Rapid set structural filler compound. Used to anchor steel posts into concrete, comes as a liquid slurry, hardens in under 45 minutes. Once cured, it bonds to anything porous and most things that aren't, including asphalt, including rubber, including undercarriages. I didn't rush. That's important. Revenge fails when you rush. I checked local laws. Blocking a driveway? Illegal. Parking on someone else's access easement? Also illegal. Altering your own property? Completely legal. The next time Marcus blocked my driveway, it was just after sunset. On schedule. He parked, locked his SUV, and walked away without even glancing back. That night, I went to the supply warehouse. I didn't buy a few bags, I bought 30. The cashier raised an eyebrow. "Pouring a slab?" he asked. "Something like that," I replied. Back home, I staged everything neatly in my garage. Buckets, mixer paddle, drill, gloves, mask. I slept like a baby. The SUV sat there all night, silently blocking me in. At 6:30 a.m., Marcus still hadn't returned. Perfect. I rolled my garage open slowly, measured, calm. I taped off my driveway line very clearly. Everything I did stayed on my property. Then I started mixing. The compound poured like thick gray cream. No smell, no drama. just inevitability. I started at the rear tires. I poured the slurry carefully, letting it flow under the rubber, into the tread, around the contact points with the asphalt. Then the front. Then along the undercarriage lip, just enough. The compound began to stiffen almost immediately. I worked fast, but not sloppy. By the time I finished, the SUV looked normal. That was the genius of it. No mess, no vandalism, no obvious damage, just bonded. I cleaned up, put everything away, showered, made breakfast. At 8:12 a.m., Marcus came jogging down the sidewalk, phone to his ear. He stopped mid-sentence when he reached his SUV. He opened the driver's door, sat down, pressed the brake, hit the ignition. Nothing. He tried again. Then he reversed. The wheels didn't move, not an inch. He floored it. The SUV whined softly and stayed perfectly still. Marcus stepped out, kicked the tire. It didn't budge. That's when he looked up, straight at my house.
Marcus stared at his SUV like it had personally betrayed him. He crouched down, ran his fingers along the tire, then frowned. He tried rocking the vehicle with his whole body. Nothing. The SUV didn't even creak. That's when he did what Marcus always did when things didn't go his way. He pulled out his phone and called the police. I watched from my kitchen window as he paced, waving his arms, clearly explaining how a certain homeowner had sabotaged him. He kept pointing at my driveway, then at my house, then back at the SUV. I calmly poured myself another cup of coffee. 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. The officer stepped out, took one look at the SUV, and immediately raised an eyebrow. "What seems to be the problem?" the officer asked. Marcus didn't hesitate. "This guy sabotaged my vehicle. I want him arrested." The officer glanced at me. "Sir?" I walked outside, hands visible, calm as could be. "Good morning," I said. "My driveway has been blocked overnight. Again." The officer looked down at the position of the SUV, then back at Marcus. "Is this your vehicle?" "Yes," Marcus snapped, "but that's not the issue. He did something to it." "What exactly did he do?" the officer asked. Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. "Well, look at it. It won't move." The officer crouched, examined the tires, then knocked lightly on the hardened compound visible near the pavement. "This looks like structural filler," he said. "Anchoring compound." Marcus's face changed. "Exactly. He poured it on my car." I cleared my throat. "Officer, I poured it on my driveway. I was repairing surface degradation on my property. His vehicle was parked across my access easement." The officer stood up and crossed his arms. "Is that true, sir?" he asked Marcus. Marcus hesitated, just for a second, but that second was enough. "Well, yes, but I had HOA business." HOA authority doesn't override municipal parking law. Blocking a private driveway is illegal. Marcus's voice rose. "So you're just going to let him damage my car?" The officer shook his head. "This is a civil matter. If you believe your vehicle was damaged, you can pursue it in court." Marcus exploded. "This is ridiculous! I'm calling my lawyer." He stormed back and forth, phone glued to his ear, while the officer quietly handed me a warning notice for the obstruction. "Next time," the officer said, "call us sooner." Then he left. Marcus wasn't smiling anymore. By noon, a flatbed tow truck arrived, but the driver took one look and refused. "Can't lift it," he said. "It's bonded to the ground. I'll rip the undercarriage clean off." Marcus yelled at him, threatened him, promised complaints. The driver shrugged and drove away. Next came a concrete specialist, then a structural engineer. They all said the same thing. "This isn't surface contact. This is cured anchoring compound. It's essentially part of the driveway now." One engineer even whistled. Whoever poured this knew exactly what they were doing. Marcus glared at my house as if he could see me through the walls. By late afternoon, he finally marched over and rang my doorbell, hard. I opened the door. "We need to talk," he said through clenched teeth. "I agree," I replied, "about you blocking my driveway. This ends now. You remove it or I make your life hell." I smiled. "Marcus," I said, calmly, "you parked illegally on my property, multiple times. I documented everything. I made a repair to my driveway. That's it. You knew my car was there. Yes, just like you knew my driveway was blocked." He leaned in. "Do you know who I am?" I nodded. "Former HOA Vice Chair." His eyes widened. "Former?" "Oh," I said casually, "didn't you hear? There was an emergency board meeting this morning." He froze. Several homeowners submitted complaints. Turns out blocking driveways, abusing authority, and threatening residents violates HOA bylaws. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He looked down. His face went pale. I didn't need to see the screen to know what it said. Marcus didn't say another word. He turned and walked away. The removal crew arrived the next day. They spent 9 hours chiseling, cutting, and grinding. Sparks flew. Concrete dust filled the air. The driveway took some damage, but that was fixable. The SUV? Not so much. The compound tore chunks of rubber from the tires, scraped the undercarriage, and cracked several plastic housings underneath. The final bill? Just under $14,000. Insurance refused to cover it. Illegal parking, owner negligence. Marcus sold the SUV 2 months later. He parks on the street now, legally, carefully. He doesn't look at my house anymore. And my driveway? Perfectly clear. If you made it this far, subscribe, because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, it's precise. And remember, just because someone thinks they own the neighborhood doesn't mean they own your driveway.